Today we are making small batch strawberry rhubarb pie. It is a perfect combination of sweet strawberries, tart rhubarb. We're going to use a flaky pastry crust topped with a crunchy streusel. It's a perfect pie. Join me in the kitchen as we make small batch recipes with big taste. For our small batch strawberry rhubarb pie today, we're going to use store-bought pie crust. Now you can totally make your own pie crust. You're going to need one pie crust, but you know, I had it in my fridge, so we're going to use it. Now, you want to take it out and let it sit at room temperature for a little bit so that it doesn't break apart when you try to roll it out. But after you roll it out, we're going to want to take a rolling pin and slightly roll it bigger. It needs to be just a little bit bigger to get our two pie crusts out of it. We're going to use these mini little pie tins. I have a link to them in the description down below. They measure 5 inches across. So after we've got our pie dough rolled out a bit, then we're going to take our pie crust, lay it on our dough, and you want to leave about 3/4 of an inch or so around the pie crust and cut right along that, away from the pie crust. And we're just going to lift it up and pop it down into our pie tin. Go ahead and press the dough into the pie tin, and then you're going to form an edge around the top. Use the side of your hand to flatten that top edge of the crust, and then you're going to use your fingers to create a pretty fluted edge. Our first step then is to prep our rhubarb. Now, rhubarb, if you're picking it at the peak of season, you probably won't need to peel it, but mine's just from the grocery store, not peak of season, so I am going to peel it. I'm first of all going to kind of cut off those woody ends, and then you'll see you get some fibrous coating on the outside, and we're just going to go ahead and peel that off. Now, you could also just take like some kind of scrubber, a sponge scrubber or whatever, and scrub it, but I just find it easy just to peel it right off. But like I said, if it is peak rhubarb, you may just need to scrub it a little bit and clean it off, and it's going to be ready to go. And then after we peel it, we're just going to take it and chop it up. So I've got a cup of rhubarb. Now, did you know that rhubarb was technically originally a vegetable, but in 1947, they declared rhubarb a fruit. Now, rhubarb is naturally tart by nature, so that's why you'll find it's usually combined with strawberries and a lot of sugar. So for our fruit filling, we're going to combine that cup of diced up rhubarb, and then we're going to use 2 cups of diced strawberries. And then that sugar to sweeten up that rhubarb. I have got 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then we're going to get about, I'm just going to squeeze this lemon. You want about, 1/2 teaspoon or so. Make sure you don't get any seeds in it like I just did. And then just to give it a little bit more savory, we're going to use 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. This is totally optional. If you're not a fan of nutmeg, you can leave it out. You could replace it even with some cinnamon. Then we're going to grab a spoon. We are going to mix that up and get those berries and that rhubarb totally coated with the sugar. And what it's going to do, it's going to do what's called macerate, and it is going to allow the fruit to kind of sweeten up and release some of its juices. So that is what you want it to do. All right, and because it's going to release those juices, we want to use a thickener in our pie so that it will help those juices to thicken. So let me clean up my counter here. We are going to use some cornstarch and water. So for that thickener, we're going to take a tablespoon of water, and then we're going to use cornstarch for our thickener. Just 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch, and that's going to make what we call a slurry. And so we just want to get that cornstarch all dissolved into the water. Then we'll take our berries, and we are going to pour that over our berry mixture. Like I said, that's going to help thicken up all those juices that the fruit is going to release. All right, we're going to let that sit for a few minutes, and we're going to mix up. This pie has a streusel topping on it. Now, if you want a pastry topping, go ahead. You just need another pie crust, which you can cut into 2 circles and cover the pie with. But personally, I like a streusel topping. For our streusel topping, we are going to need 2 tablespoons of softened butter. Get all that in there. We're going to use 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Pack it in there and then get it all out. We're going to use 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. and a 1/4 cup of old-fashioned oats. Old-fashioned oats is going to give it a nice chewiness to it. If all you have is quick oats, go ahead and use those. It'll just affect the texture a little bit. And then you're going to wash your hands. All right. Dry them off. Oh, there we go. And we're just going to use our fingers to combine this together. You want it so it forms kind of a crumbly, almost wet sand consistency. Now, this is my favorite part of the pie. I love a crunchy streusel topping. That apple, I have a berry crisp, I think, and an apple crisp for 2 here. That uses the same streusel topping, which is so yummy. One little trick for you that I like to use in my fruit pies is tapioca. What this does again is acts a little bit as a thickener, because remember those berries, that fruit releases quite a bit of juices, and so as it bakes, the tapioca helps it to thicken up, so you don't have like a super runny pie. And so I just take some, probably maybe like a half of a tablespoon, a teaspoon or so, and just sprinkle it in the bottom of my pie, so that it's just going to then act, kind of combine with those juices that are released and thicken up as the pie cooks. And then we are going to take our fruit, and you can see there's quite a bit of juice that has formed. We're going to add all of that and the juice into our pie crust, and you want to just try to get it as even as possible so you don't have somebody fighting over the big pie. All right. Then we'll take our streusel topping and get that over the top of the fruit. Again, just divide it in half. All right, they are ready to go into our oven now. I've preheated my oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's a little tip for you, especially with these little pies. It makes them easier to take in and out of the oven is if you just use a cookie sheet, put them on a cookie sheet, and that way you can just take them both in and out at the same time. We're going to bake these for about 20 minutes or until that fruit is nice and hot and bubbly and the streusel topping is golden brown on the top. Pie is done. It smells amazing. Now, like any pie should be eaten warm. Now, truth be told, I have never even tasted rhubarb until a few years ago. I am married to a man from Idaho. He grew up on rhubarb, loves rhubarb, used to pick it wild on the side of the road. And I discovered a few years ago when you combine it with some strawberries and a little sugar, I love it too. Now, of course, warm pie should always have ice cream on top. We're going to add a scoop of that, and then our rhubarb pie is ready to enjoy. Now, if you're looking for some more small batch pie recipes, go ahead and check up there, and I'll see you in the next video.